The Rangers manager in waiting didn't have to wait very long. On Friday night, the Rangers announced Skip Schumaker is their next manager.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covered this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, we're talking about the Rangers hiring Skip Schumaker, what it means, what he brings to this Texas Rangers franchise, and while he may not be Bruce Bochy, why that is just more than okay at this point. Before we get into all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Now, the Rangers made the hire that everybody expected them to make, naming Skip Schumaker their next manager after Bruce Bochy and the Rangers parted ways on Monday. It did not take long for this to happen. I'm recording this on Sunday morning. I didn't have time on yesterday to talk about Skip, the new Skip, but late Friday night after the end of season post-mortem press conference by Chris Young talking about what the heck was this 2025 Texas Rangers season. He did that in the morning on Friday, and then just a few hours later, not even days later, but around 8 o'clock at night on Friday, the Rangers said, here's your Friday news dump. Skip Schumaker is the next manager of the Texas Rangers for 2026 through 2029, a 4-year contract. And this was the only guy that they talked to. This is what they talked about on Friday. Chris Young said, we have an internal candidate, being very mysterious, like we didn't all know that it was Skip Schumaker. He said, we're not really looking at other candidates right now. We want to move quickly on this process. And boy, howdy, did they, because Bruce Bochy and the Rangers said, all right, yeah, this has run its course on Monday. On Tuesday, Chris Young was already talking to Skip Schumaker about, okay, you're the guy now. You are the guy now. And he was going to be very sought after if the Rangers had let him talk to other people. But this happened pretty quickly. We'll talk about who Skip Schumaker is. We'll talk later about why this all happened so quickly and what he brings to the table. But Skip Schumaker has been a big league manager for 2 seasons. He made the postseason in his first year as a manager of the Miami Marlins back in 2023. Oh, so long ago. A miracle job, a truly miraculous bit of work, taking that Marlins team to the postseason in 2023. It was not a good team. And while they did get swept immediately in that wildcard round by the Philadelphia Phillies, who made it all the way to the NLCS and were a significantly better team, but he still got that team to the postseason with, not to be unkind, but kind of players off the scrap heap. Occasionally, a few good players, but mostly a team that was projected to finish with 100 plus losses, projected to be one of the worst teams in all of baseball. And Skip took that team in his first season as the skipper all the way to October. And, well, once they got there, it was kind of exposed what kind of a team they were. But still, for the fact that he got there at all was one of the best bit of managing I think I've ever seen, at least in the 12 years that I've been covering this sport. Now, what did he do in his other season? Well, it wasn't as good. The Marlins were in a rough spot, and they decided, you know what, we did make the postseason last year. We did have a lot of young talent taking those steps forward in terms of the pitching staff, at least. Are we going to add on? Are we going to try and be good? No. They part ways with Kim Ng. They lose 100 games. They sell off basically everybody that's not nailed down. And they trade away so much of the talent that got them there. So he has one postseason season as a manager, one 100-loss season as a manager. And after that 2024 season, Skip Schumaker said, yeah, I'm good. I'm good not being a part of this Miami Marlins team. He signed on with the Rangers to be a special assistant to the general manager. Honestly, the best job in baseball. You get paid to take calls and say, hey, you want to work today? You want to do something? No? Okay, all good. Kind of a symbolic role, not as much an active role. Sometimes it's more active, sometimes it's less active. It just kind of depends on the guy. But it felt pretty obvious when the Rangers brought on Skip Schumaker. That was not much after they lost their previous manager in waiting, Will Venable, to the Chicago White Sox. They brought on Skip Schumaker to say, okay, well, if Bruce Bochy does end up leaving, we want you to be the guy, because there are a lot of openings for other manager spots at the big league level right now. There might be some other ones after this postseason. I doubt it. I think all the teams that are here are going to stick with the guys who got them at least to this divisional series. But part of the reason the Rangers waited until Friday night to make that decision is because they wanted to wait until the contract was finalized, and they couldn't, or they were deeply discouraged, I should say, by Major League Baseball from making big announcements like a new manager and things like that the day that there are a lot of postseason games. That was Saturday. There were 4 postseason games then. It's also why I don't know if we'll get an introductory press conference for Skip Schumaker until after the divisional series of the postseason. Wait for an off day, and then the Rangers can go big, full tilt. Hey, here's our new skipper, Skip. I will probably be out of town whenever they do that, because I will be in Georgia for the majority of this week. But I wanted to make sure that I talked about Skip Schumaker, the new skipper, before we got here. He was also a big league player for several years, just the most Cardinals-y type of player. He spent 11 seasons in the big leagues, one shy of 1,150 games, 1,149 career games, most of them at second base, a little bit in the outfield, left field, center field, right field, all of those spots. Occasionally would pitch, but basically just the scrappy end of the bench, just perfect managerial type of candidate that you would expect coming out of the Cardinals. I mean, he is just such a Cardinals way type of a player, a guy who did not hit for a lot of power, a guy who was just utility infielder, just good defender all around, just played the game hard, just every kind of scrappy end of bench compliment you want to give to Skip Schumaker, whose official name was not actually Skip. It is Jared Michael Schumacher. I am looking forward to hearing how he got the nickname Skip before he was even a skipper. This was him as a player as well. He also won a ring as a player. He did not win a ring as a manager with those Miami Marlins, but he was a part of that 2011 Cardinals team, which I'm sure we all remember very unfondly, but for me, I don't care as much since the end of that 2023 postseason where the Rangers got theirs, and everything that hurt before it doesn't matter quite as much. But this is a guy with a lot of experience in baseball, a lot of respect around the game, not only as a manager, but as a player. He was also a coach for the San Diego Padres, and then he was a coach for the St. Louis Cardinals before he was named manager of the Miami Marlins. So he's got a little bit of experience under the hood. He is 45 years old. He won't turn 46 until February of this next year. So I had a lot of things in mind for what I wanted the Rangers to get out of their next manager, the things that I wanted that Bruce Bochy did not necessarily provide, but Skip Schumaker has a lot of those things, and basically almost everything that I was looking for in a manager. We're talking about that and why this came together so fast, and if this was the right process right after this. This show is brought to you by Rugiet Go Long. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra and Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where this comes in. It's not just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula, so you can go the distance. The effects last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. So if you're ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom, head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Shout out to the Everydayers making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On tomorrow's show, I'll be talking about 5 things that went well for the Texas Rangers in 2025. I recorded that a couple of days ago, got all of this week's episodes recorded outside of this one. So lots of content while I am gone, talking all about what the heck happened in this 2025 season. But just be aware that all of the episodes were recorded before Skip Schumaker. So if there are any references to who is the next Rangers manager going to be, that was recorded before. I did not time travel, and I did not forget that Skip Schumaker is the next manager of the Texas Rangers. Now, the qualities that I was looking for in a big league manager, I'll get to in a little bit, but I want to start with why this happened so fast. Usually manager hirings take some time. It takes some time to figure out exactly who you want. Usually it's not somebody who has been in the organization. Usually when those happen, they happen pretty darn quickly. Look at what happened with when Dusty Baker retired after the 2023 season, where he lost in the ALCS to these Texas Rangers. They said, okay, Joe Espada, you're the bench coach. Now you're the manager. That happened pretty darn quickly. And while he did have some success there, usually it doesn't play out that way. Usually it doesn't happen, within a week of the old guy, especially when the old guy, no, he's not that, he's old enough, older than Skip Schumaker. But when the previous manager is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer, a guy who has 4 World Series championships, including the one and only that your franchise has had, and including especially when it happened just 2 years ago. It's not like, oh man, Bruce Bochy won a ring back in 2015, 10 years ago, and he's been clinging on to dear life ever since. No, he came in and year one won a World Series. So maybe Skip Schumaker comes in and is another manager who wins a World Series in his first years as a manager of the Texas Rangers. I don't think that is necessarily going to happen, but it's not impossible. I mean, this is a team set up to compete, and they will expect them to compete. But the reason all this happened so fast and the Rangers didn't interview anybody else is because this was kind of the game plan all along. At some point, they knew Bruce Bochy was probably either going to, maybe make the move to San Francisco or just straight up retire again, because he stepped away from the game back in 2019. I don't think that was entirely his decision. I think it was kind of a mutual decision. It felt like more like the regime change in San Francisco, where he said, okay, yeah, my time is done. I think I need to step away from the game, at least for a few years. And he said all along, leading into that 2023 season where he got hired and won his first championship as a member of the Texas Rangers, he said the situation would have to be, pretty much perfect for him to come out of his retirement at that point. And maybe it's going to have to be perfect for him to, go somewhere else after this leaving. But when the Raiders did bring Bruce Bochy out of semi-retirement, not quite retirement, they knew. I'm sure one of the things that Bruce Bochy and Chris Young talked about when Chris Young went to his home in Nashville before the offseason really started in reality in 2022 was, okay, if you come back, how long do you want to come back for? Are you going to come back and say, oof, actually, this is a bad idea. This was not what I was expecting. Are you wanting to come back and stay back for, half a decade? Or you want to go 5 years, 6 years? Are you going to keep on managing? What if it gets hard? What if you don't win immediately? I'm sure that was one of the things that was talked about. What if you have a team that is full of a bunch of veteran hitters that just all forget how to hit at the exact same time for 2 months? What if that happens? But he still seems to love it. But there always needed to be that contingency plan in place. And Skip Schumaker was definitely it. He was definitely, I think, a better manager in waiting than what the Rangers had in Will Venable. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that Will Venable is a bad manager because the White Sox lost 100-plus games this year. That they were a 100-plus loss team, but they were fighting hard. They were playing hard for him, even at the end of the season when they had nothing to play for all season long because they knew the level of talent they had there. But I think Will Venable did a good job in his first year as a manager. But I think Skip Schumaker did a better job in his first year of manager, not with, a little bit more talent, but not necessarily a good Marlins team. I mean, the offense there is just, it was just wild to me that he was able to get a team with an OPS plus 10% worse than league average all the way to the postseason in his first year as a skipper. This guy feels like someone who was, built to be a big league manager, and he had a lot of success while doing it. And I would love to have seen what he could have done in year two without his team being completely disassembled underneath him. There's a reason why he left after just 2 years. He said, all right, peace out. I don't want to be a part of this anymore. It's because the Marlins are not a particularly well-run organization. And he saw that and he said, okay, I don't want to just go sit here and toil in obscurity. I want to go have a chance to be at least a part of a winning organization. And the Rangers are a winning organization. They did not have a winning year this year. They did not have a winning year last year, but they are the team at this point who has won a championship most recently outside of the Los Angeles Dodgers, who are just their own thing. And Skip wanted to be a part of that. He wanted to be a manager in waiting to replace a guy who, look, it's going to be a tough task. It's going to be a very tough task to not only replace Bruce Bochy, to be the guy who comes after Bruce Bochy. That is a difficult enough task. The best manager in Major League history, the only one to bring this team to the promised land, you got to come after that guy. And while he is not Bruce Bochy's replacement, he is. It's not, we're bringing this guy on because he is a better manager overall than Bruce Bochy. No, it's such an interesting thing hiring a manager. Usually it takes so long because it's not somebody within the organization who already has a familiarity with the organization. Skip has been around. He has relationships with these players, especially Jake Berger, who he managed for a year and a half as a member of the Miami Marlins organization. He did that. He knows Jake Berger, and Jake Berger performed well as a member of the Miami Marlins organization. And hopefully with a healthier and a relationship with his manager, he can have a better 2026 than he did in 2025, because it did not go well for Jake Berger this year. But this, I think, was the right process, was the right plan. You had to have a predecessor in place for a guy like Bruce Bochy, a guy who knew what was going on, knew the situation he'd be coming into, and already had that, first foot or two or three in the door to come in and turn around what has been a tough 2 years. It has been really tough since that World Series. This is still a very talented team. And last year, I'm gonna be honest, I don't think Bruce Bochy did that great a job as a manager. I think he did everything he could. And I don't think that the Rangers losing out on the postseason with a postseason caliber team in 2025 was because Bruce Bochy was their manager. I really think, 1 to 2, maybe at most 5% is on Bruce Bochy, but they needed a new voice. They needed a new something. They needed a new kick in the pants. They needed something that, Bruce Bochy did not have at this point. They needed quite a few qualities in their manager that Skip Schumaker embodies. We're talking about what those qualities are and why I think this is the perfect hire and a good process, even without looking at any other candidates right after this. This show is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees, it takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, it's easy, it's backed by the Gametime guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is actually the price you pay. I got to check out a few baseball games this year, one of them in Frisco, one of them in Arlington, watching the Rangers and the Rough Riders, and getting tickets was so easy because I used Gametime. It is the best way I have ever found to get tickets to any live event, not just baseball, not just basketball, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it. Gametime has got tickets for all of it. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Shout out to everyone who's making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Tuesday's show, I'll be talking about 5 things that went poorly for the Texas Rangers in 2025. start Monday off with some optimism, Tuesday off with some pessimism, and Wednesday I'll talk about 5 things that went weird. So lots of good stuff planned for this week's shows. Now, I think that this was a good process because this is the best manager for the Texas Rangers right now because of the qualities that Skip Schumaker embodies. The things that I talked about last week when the Rangers parted ways with Bruce Bochy, the things that I wanted in the next Rangers manager, not just in any Rangers manager, but this manager specifically at this point in time, because it is a weird inflection time for this Rangers squad that has most of the pieces that were there in 2023 that won it all. Most of at least at this point, it might not heading into 2026, but at this point, with those same pieces, just could not make the same masterpiece that they did in 2023. And the qualities that I wanted for this next Texas Rangers manager were I wanted someone with manager experience. I know that there have been some managers that have come in and been successful in their first season as a skipper, but it's a lot of moving parts, it's a lot of moving pieces. And for a team with this amount of veterans, this was the oldest team in Major League Baseball last year. Now, part of that was because, they had Jacob DeGrom up there at 38, and they also had Chris Martin at 39, who I don't know if Chris Martin's going to be there, but they've got a lot of veterans on the squad. They got Marcus Semien, they've got Corey Seager, they've got, heck, even the young guys, and Josh Young is no longer young at this point. This is a team full of veterans, and they need a guy who knows what he's doing, who has done it before, granted in different circumstances, different expectations, but a guy who knows the job, has done the job before. And, if we have some nominative determinism of the guy happens to be named after the position he's doing, that also helps it. That wasn't one of the qualities I had off the top of my head, but, thinking about it now, I think maybe I could have included that in the qualities I wanted in the next skipper if he was named Skip or Mr. Manager or what have you. The next thing I wanted from the next Rangers manager was someone who was young-ish, not very, very young, but young enough to have that youthful energy and exuberance. Because I talked about all the things that Bruce Bochy did well last week. I also talked about some of the things that he did poorly. And one of the things that he did poorly, through no fault of his own, through only the machinations of time, is that he is old. He's 70 years old. And the Rangers needed just a little bit more youthful exuberance and energy. Now, you got to balance that. You got to have somebody who's got skins on the wall, who, has that kind of calming, steadying presence, because they've been there before. They've done it before. They've won it before, to lend that credibility to your organization. And that's what Bruce Bochy did. That's what he brought. And it stayed in this Texas Rangers organization because they won that first championship. Now they can say, hey, look, we got one of these trophies if you're watching on YouTube, or you can also see the pennant behind me on YouTube as well. The Rangers have that. They have that now because of Bruce Bochy. And so they don't have to act like an organization who hasn't been there, hasn't done that before. They can have somebody with a little bit more youthful exuberance, because these older guys, these veterans, could have used a little bit more of a kick in the pants last year, could have used a little bit more of a panic button last year that Bruce Bochy didn't have, because he's never had to, because he's always been that dude. I also wanted somebody who has the ability to develop young players, someone who, can relate, who has worked a little bit on the player development side. Skip's got a little bit of experience in that kind of a role with both the Padres and the Cardinals, just a little bit of that, relating to younger players, being a younger skipper, because the Rangers, they've got some really good young players. I just said a lot of the team is comprised of veterans, but the young guys that are here are really darn good. I'm thinking of the big three right now, possibly big four, depending on what Kumar Rocker gets up to next season. But Jack Leiter, I guess he was a rookie last year. He'll be 26 next year. Not necessarily young, but still pretty young. He'll be in his second full season as a big leaguer next year. He was really darn good last year, especially over the second half. They've also got two outfielders who are just small baby boys in terms of their age, but play and act like grown men, like veterans, in Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford. Both of them are very, very good. And I want the Rangers to be able to develop those guys to help them get better, to be the best version of themselves, because Wyatt Langford is already pretty darn good. I mean, he's already a 5.5 win player as a 23-year-old, just 2 years removed from being drafted. Just 2 years removed from college, he is already a 5.5 win player, a summit that most players in Major League Baseball never, ever come close to. He is already that at 23. And he's got potential to be even better. MVP caliber. That's the kind of ceiling on Wyatt Langford. It's a lot of pressure, but I think Skip Schumaker can help him get there. And maybe he could have gotten there. He could still get there on his own or with a different manager than Skip Schumaker. But I think Wyatt Langford could use just a little bit more help from a guy who has a little bit more experience in the kind of player development side that isn't as veteran leaning, veteran heavy as Bruce Bochy was. Now, Bruce Bochy was that because he found success doing that, and it worked for a while with the Texas Rangers. It worked for quite a bit with the San Francisco Giants. But I think the Rangers need somebody who is a little bit less old guy focused than Bruce Bochy and has that chance to develop young players. I wanted someone who was adaptable. I think Skip Schumaker is definitely that. He can adapt his styles. He is still young. He's still learning how to be a manager. So I'm sure he will be able to, adapt his style to what the Texas Rangers are asking, how that's different from what he had with the Marlins, a little bit more small ball, a little bit more pitching heavy, though he does know how to win with a team full of really good starting pitching and some suspect hitting, which is unfortunately what the Rangers were in 2025. I mean, they had a rotation in 2023 of Jesus Luzardo, Sandy Alcantara, Braxton Garrett had a really good year that year, has not had as good a year since, but Edward Cabrera was great that year, and Yuri Perez was a rookie that year, and he was fantastic that year, and he had some weapons and some inconsistent weapons in the bullpen that he kind of made the most of, and that's kind of what he's going to have to do with the Rangers in 2026 as their skipper. And I also wanted someone who was respected. I wanted someone who was respected around the game by veteran players, not just having that experience being a manager, but being a good manager, experience succeeding as a manager. And that's all what he brings. All of these qualities are things that Skip Schumaker brings. He also brings more qualities. There are more attributes that I did not attribute to him and things that I don't know about Skip Schumaker that we will learn over the next week to 4 years in 2029, which, gosh, that seems so incredibly far away. And it makes me think of the John Mulaney bit where he's talking about his mortgage. And he's like, 2029, that's not a real year. That's kind of how I think of the year 2029, which is 4 years away, which if he is not fired or does not take a job elsewhere, which I don't know that he would, then we are going to see a lot of Skip Schumaker, who could be the next manager to get the Rangers to the postseason. But this was a fast process. This was a thing that came together very, very quickly. And a lot of it was because this was the plan all along. And granted, maybe the plan needed to change over the course of the 2025 season. Maybe what was the plan for 2025? This was not the plan. Not plan A, I should say, for how 2025 went. Plan A for how 2025 went. If they were going to replace a manager, the best case scenario would be that Bruce Bochy does an incredible job, gets this team to the postseason, rallies them behind what had been a turbulent year. Everybody gets healthy enough. They make a run and they dethrone the Dodgers to get their second championship in franchise history. And Bruce Bochy says, wow, what an incredible 3 years that was. I'm going to peace out. I'm going to retire. I'm going to go out on top like a champ, winning 2 out of 3 championships in my 3 seasons as a member of the Texas Rangers. And then the Rangers say, okay, all right, time to bring in Skip Schumaker. That would be plan A of how replacing a manager this year would have gone. That was not the case. But I think with the amount of openings that there were in manager spots right now, I mean, there were 7 before the Rangers hired Skip Schumaker. Now, granted, I talked about this on the episode where I listed 5 different manager jobs that, where the Rangers ranked with the 5 potential manager candidates with the other openings, the other 7 openings. I thought the Braves were a better opening than the Rangers right now. I really do. I think it's a better situation. Now, granted, there isn't the uncertainty that I thought on Friday's show where I said, is Bruce Bochy being, or maybe it was Thursday's show. Yeah, it was Thursday's show where I said, is Bruce Bochy being gone? Is that a sign that the Rangers are just going to tear this thing from the studs up and start a rebuild? Is that why they brought in Skip Schumaker? And they said, no payroll. While it is going to be lower than it was this year, they're just going to be fighting for staying under that luxury tax, which is what they said last year. They said last year that was the imperative that must happen. They still ended up going over the luxury tax, which granted is not that expensive if you don't go that far over it. If you're not blasting into the Cohen zone, which this team is not going to do. There's no situation where they blast into the $350 million payroll range. They're not doing that. Ray Davis is not doing that. And as much as I like to rage against billionaires not spending money, I think that's fine to not go into that crazy zone and just be right around the luxury tax. But they're not going to rip this thing down from the studs. If they got a lot of money coming off the books, I talked about that on Thursday's show of how much money they have coming off the books. It's about $45 million. They'll have to add about 12 million or so in guys starting arbitration. That's not even including arbitration raises, but it's a net negative 30. It's a net $30 million off the books. So they're not completely tearing this thing down to the studs up, but it's still, there are some questions there. But outside of the Braves vacancy, there weren't that many more, prominent jobs, prominent openings. I think the Rangers were probably the second best job opening. They're definitely a better place to go than, the Nationals right now, or the Rockies ever, or definitely the Twins right now. The Orioles are in a weird spot, so maybe they're a better job, but the Angels are constantly a mess as long as Artie Moreno is involved, and it would take a miracle for anybody to turn that thing around. I don't even think Bruce Bochy could turn the Angels into a winner if Artie Moreno is there. But the Rangers had to move fast on this guy. They had this guy in the organization. They know about who he is, what he's about. And because they had that year to have him be a member of this organization and say, okay, this is who he actually is. This is not some theoretical who this guy might be, who we think this guy is from just some interviews or from, talking to other people around the game who know him. We've had him in-house doing who knows what, how much, but they have had him as a member of this organization ready, waiting for this opportunity, a unique opportunity, a difficult opportunity, but a chance for Skip Schumaker to thrive. And there's a lot of good managers out there, but if every manager in Major League Baseball was a free agent right now, there aren't that many that I would choose ahead of Skip Schumaker. Now, there's a few. I think Craig Counsell, Pat Murphy are guys who maybe I'd rather have right now than the guy who they got. Maybe AJ Hinch. I don't know about Alex Cora. That's about it. That's really about it. And there were some other candidates that were out there. I mean, maybe there were some more veteran managers, but for a guy who was exactly what the Rangers were looking for, who had all these qualities of, having the skins on the wall, but while still being young, still being adaptable. If you were going to get the older guy, the most respected guy, if it wasn't going to be Bruce Bochy, it shouldn't have been anyone like that. It should not have been anyone in the remote vicinity of Bruce Bochy, because if you could have Bruce Bochy, that's the best version of that veteran skipper with skins on the wall, as they like to say. And if they're not going to have that, I think Skip Schumaker is the best candidate available, and the Rangers move fast because they knew they needed to, because other teams would be wanting Skip Schumaker. The Rangers wanted him more, and that's why he's the next manager of these Texas Rangers. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.